Good morning. Last night, everybody had some kind of dinner, some kind of event, I think. So I'm glad to see people are awake, caffeinated. So very happy to be here to talk about a new initiative and a concept that we're launching today at Juniper Networks. We call it Juniper Beyond Labs. And it's really about how we can formalize our history and DNA of innovation into really creating a structure around which we can partner, collaborate with the ecosystem to continue to innovate for the future. So I want to start with this quote, which is very important, I think, especially that we have Silicon Valley is a great example of a graveyard of many successful companies who ignored this particular advice, and you see what happened to them. So it's important, I think, anytime you are very successful to be very paranoid and very careful about how do you reinvent yourself continuously to be able to continue to be successful. And the innovation matters for the same reason as I said you that it requires you to be agile. You have to continue to reinvent yourself. You have to find ways to go about. It is definitely an engine of growth. People are able to grow because they continue to innovate. You saw what happened with generative AI in the last 6 months. It's a biggest disruption since the HTTP web browser was invented, and everyone is scrambling to react to that inflection point. But that's going to lead to a lot of growth, both for existing companies as well as new companies. And finally, differentiation. I think innovation is the only way you can differentiate. You have to stay ahead of the curve, ahead of the competition, and so on. And nowadays, the differentiation is even more important because in a global economy, there are lots of places around the world where innovation is happening. It's no longer restricted to industrialized economies and Western nations. When it comes to Juniper, we do believe that innovation is ingrained in our DNA because the company started as a challenger to an existing company doing x86 based routers by introducing very innovative high performance networking ASICs. Since then, we have branched out into network virtualization, connected security. We embed security in all of the portfolio. It's an adjective for us. Secure is an adjective we use for any networking product we put out. We have been now leaders in a Gartner Magic Quadrant for 3 years in a row as a visionary as well as leader in execution in terms of applying machine learning and AI for cloud managed operations of campus branch networks, Wi-Fi, and assured secure networks. Cloud native. That's one of the architectures that we keep on pushing because what we do in a physical network infrastructure is equally applicable in the cloud. So not only that we want to provide products for physical network infrastructure in the cloud, but also when it comes to virtual networking in the cloud networking, inter VPC, inter cloud, inter region networking, we are providing cloud native products. And finally, 5G has really disaggregated how the aggregation points in the network from the front hall, mid hall to the back hall are coming into either through fixed wireless, Wi-Fi, cable, everything is coming to metro. It's a very largely distributed network, no longer using the traditional ring kind of topology. And we have a cloud metro portfolio to bring principles of cloud native architecture to the metro area. So given that history, let me play a video which really talks about what we're trying to achieve with this concept called Juniper Beyond Labs.
Innovation is not just a buzzword here at Juniper Networks. It's what we do and who we are. Innovators focused on improving networks every day. Relentlessly focused on scaling IP networks faster and more efficiently than anyone else. Revolutionizing internet security. Reimagining network operations to improve the network operator and end user experience. With active assurance, artificial intelligence, intent-driven automation, and cloud orchestration for enterprise, cloud, and service provider networks, so everyone has a better connected experience. And now, Juniper Beyond Labs is accelerating innovation that focuses on improving our ability to scale, sustain, and enhance networks for a better user experience. With a global community of partners, we're pioneering research, pathfinding new solutions and engaging with thought leaders, enabling you to experience groundbreaking innovation through proof of concepts and go-to-market trials, collaborate with leading academic and commercial partners, and deliver sustainable networking, simplified operations, and a better networking experience for users. Juniper Beyond Labs gives you access to new research and expert guidance, providing a community open and willing to share ideas, shaping the future of our industry. Juniper Beyond Labs is the innovation hub, where real-world challenges become real-time solutions. Now is the time to collaborate. Now is the time to innovate. Now is the time for Juniper Beyond Labs.
The video really tries to capture what I was talking about, that how we want to use this concept to really partner and collaborate with people. What I'm going to do in the rest of the presentation is elaborate and give examples of what we're doing and where we invite others to join us. So I think there are 4 pillars to this particular concept. First is, of course, innovation. We talked about it. We'll give some examples. The other is customer engagement. We can engage with customers for joint projects, like we're doing with some of the service providers in Europe. Demos at our executive briefing center, in some partnerships in which we do joint projects. So that's the engagement. The collaboration is also another important pillar where we are collaborating with companies like Intel, Dell, Rakuten Mobile, and so on to create joint innovations to move the industry forward. We are also collaborating with academic partners like Purdue University, or a company like Eurofiber, the government agencies, or a startup like Arkit, and so on. And finally, sustainability is very important. Just the previous speaker talked about need for sustainable networks. And one of the things I'll talk about with concrete examples is what we are trying to do to really change the way we think about networking, especially the wide area networking, data center networking, and so on. So I think there are 3 aspects of innovation. So I want to go through all the 4 pillars I talked about: innovation, engagement, collaboration, and sustainability. In the area of innovation, first of all, we start with really research, where we jointly work with universities to fund research in universities. We have done it ourselves in the area of silicon photonics, quantum networking, and so on. Next is pathfinding projects. This is a concept in which you start a project as an exploratory project to try out new idea. An example of such a project which is already delivering results in the area of 5G O-RAN is our RAN intelligence controller, which is truly the new operating system for an open disaggregated RAN. And that allows us to interoperate with anybody's radio stack, as well as allow third-party ecosystem of application developers to start delivering value, just like what Apple App Store did in the area of mobile phones. Similar concept exists in O-RAN. Lastly, the thought leadership, which comes in a variety of forms, such as I mentioned, demos, joint projects, POCs. We also started dialogues or speaker series where we bring in experts from outside to talk about innovation or what they are doing and where the industry should go. So those are the 3 really aspects of how we want to push the innovation. The next thing is, how do we go about innovation, right? How do we get the ideas? So if you look at the left-hand side, it talks about where do you get the funnel of ideas. They can come from customers, industry needs and trends, partners, as I mentioned, our own engineering teams, sales teams, architecture teams, our strategy team, and in general, the ecosystem. You take those ideas, and first thing you do is that you allocate 3-4 resources for ideation of that idea, to convert that idea into something that could become a project. And part of that exploration is to do what I call minimum viable demo. It's not a minimum viable project. It's not a science fair demo that you can show and throw it over the wall, but it's a minimum viable demo in the sense that you create sufficient level of detail in a prototype that you can actually deploy in a customer environment to try it out and get feedback. And if that passes the muster, then you go to the next step to make it into actual business or a product. So that's really the flow of innovation, from ideas all the way to proof of concept pilots to actual products, is how the innovation funnel works. And here's an example of these different phases of innovation in action. On the left-hand side, you have ideation. So for example, we're working on what we call end-to-end assurance. No matter which part of the network you operate in, from client to cloud. So you could be in a campus branch network, Wi-Fi network, access network, SD-WAN, data center, or a WAN, transport network. Across those all the way up to the cloud, we want to deliver a notion of end-to-end assurance that you can get both SLAs, but also secure high performance capabilities that are guaranteed in an end-to-end assurance manner. That's an example of something at the ideation stage. Next is what we have been doing in the area of quantum key distribution, right? Where we partner with another company to apply concepts of quantum networking for quantum key distribution so we can have a secure key distribution which will not have the problems of man-in-the-middle attack. We have also started looking at Cloud Connect as a service. Yesterday, some of the speakers talked about how hybrid or multi-cloud connectivity is a must for enterprises. They will continue to have on-prem applications infrastructure, but they also host some SaaS applications in multiple clouds, multiple regions, multiple zones. To interconnect all of those to virtual networking and physical networking requires creating a fabric which is completely, you can build transparently and automatically so that customers can focus on their security postures and where they want the applications to deploy. Finally, private 5G. That's the area where, given our strengths in Wi-Fi, we are partnering with third parties so that we can deliver private 5G. Now, if you go to the right, you can say we are at a stage where we made the decision with respect to whether to go or no go in terms of actual products like RAN SMO or RIC, RAN Intelligence Controller. And finally, we already are shipping and deployed in Rakuten Mobile in Japan, Juniper Cloud Native Router, which is a virtualized cell set router, which is also applicable when you move mobile packet cores to hyperscalers. You can provide that kind of connectivity, even a virtual cloud environment. So this is sort of a pipeline or different stages of innovation in action with real examples that I have. As I said, the second is experience, right? How do we engage with customers? So here's an examples. We have, of course, been engaging with our customers in our EBC. We have multiple centers in Westford, Mass, Bangalore, and Sunnyvale. We, of course, participate in events like this or host our own events and the demos. So that's the model of engagement. Next thing is sustainability. So one thing I want to talk about sustainability is that it's extremely important, not just from customer point of view, it's our ethical and business responsibility to the planet to make sure that we design products for networking which are sustainable. And one of the things you'll notice that in the area of data center, in the computing industry, sustainability has been part of the platforms for quite some time. There are industry benchmarks, so you cannot simply make claims of sustainability without having benchmarks to measure against. Networking lacks those. So one of the things we are starting is working with other people, define those benchmarks so we can start measuring sustainability of our products and services. So here's some examples of sustainability that we are looking at. Look at the RAN Intelligence Controller. RAN consumes approximately 70% of the energy. So the energy efficiency there is very important. So one of the things we are working with our partners like IRA Technologies and others, how to apply machine learning to get energy savings on top of the RAN Intelligence Controller. Of course, you can do internet link energy metering to get idea about how much energy you spend per bit of transport across the internet. We have some low power network initiatives, cloud native routing, which moves routing to the cloud native architecture, resulting in lots of savings. And finally, AI-based automation, which can also lead to saving energy. And here's an example. If you take a big chassis-based router, which has lots of line cards and fabric cards to connect the line cards together, the whole capacity might be more than terabits per second. Now, when the network is not being utilized, say, more than 20% in the middle of the night, or even 30, 40%, there's no reason that all the parts of this router should be active and burning energy. So one of the things you can do is that selectively turn off some fabric cards. You cannot turn off the line cards where the ports are because traffic can come anytime. But you can still save significant amount of energy in the fabric, in the back plane of the router. Similarly, in the control plane. You run the control plane protocols there. They usually run on x86 architecture. Intel provides lots of P states and C states, so they save energy. That sort of thing can be utilized. So this is an example of how, as together, all of us in networking industry can make networking, routing, switching more sustainable. Finally, collaboration. Collaboration comes in many different forms. Customers, we are already having examples of customers shown here. We are collaborating with them in innovating or pushing the frontiers of knowledge. Academic, we have started collaboration with many universities such as Purdue, Stanford, Berkeley, and so on, where we fund the university research, which is completely sponsored research with no strings attached. They're free to do their research, bring the ideas forward, but that way we can push the knowledge of frontiers of knowledge. And finally, industry partners. I have listed a lot of them here, and we have active participation and partnership with all of them. So the reason the collaboration is important is that any company is not going to be able to make inroads and react to industry trends by itself. By collaborating across the whole ecosystem, we can all benefit. That's the idea. So I think if you look at our partners, and there are some of the quotes here from academia, from industry partners, customers, and so on, who are very happy to join us in the journey and be partners here. And they come from a spectrum of different companies and customers as well as academia. So finally, I think my call to action for all of you is that join us in terms of exploring the possibilities so that we can shape the future of our industry. And we are truly innovating tomorrow's network today, and we want to do that through collaboration. Focus on sustainable networks, which is no longer a slogan. It's a reality and necessity that we owe it to the planet. And finally, provide a better connected experience across client to cloud or end-to-end assured experience. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Raj, and I'm happy that we can take a few questions. Thank you for making the time. You said collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Does that also mean revenue share in sharing the IPR as well?
That's right. I think when you talk about, I think one of the things to remember is that if you look at 3GPP like bodies, they have already created a very good framework for sharing IPR. Right? We do that on an R&D basis, reasonable, non-discriminatory. Same thing we have to apply across the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what about the culture, really? You talked a little bit about this, but can we go a little bit deeper about what type of, how do you really change the culture to be more co-creation and just looking not just within, but without? How do you do that? So I think little quick wins you can help the audience with.
Many times you have to take a leap of faith, right? So I think the examples I can give to our partnership with Intel, for example, or Dell, where we are co-creating. And these are larger companies which are willing to share ideas and IPR to co-create. Same thing we are doing with some of our customers in Europe, where we are jointly creating some new ideas. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the audience, ladies and gentlemen? You should take this opportunity to speak and ask directly from someone who's been driving innovation across the world. But let me just ask a cheeky question, which is, do you think that there's a greater will for innovation in some parts of the world versus others?
Yes and no. I think it's changing. You're right. Okay. Traditionally, we associated Western nations or US or North America, Europe with innovation. But I just came back from Bangalore, and I was also visiting some parts of Asia. I think the internet and the availability of mobile networks and all these applications make it easier for people to start innovating in different parts of the world. And sometimes the innovation for the local conditions is very different than what we think of the innovation. That's another.
Okay, what do you mean by that? Tease that out.
So I think an example I'll give you that, in a developing country like India, for example, I found that innovation focus is more in terms of doing more with less in terms of any part of the network. So for example, simple things like data center design. they are looking at it using much less resources and still be able to efficiently run data centers, which is a
I'm really glad you mentioned India. Perhaps the fastest growing 5G SA market in the world right now. I was there a few weeks ago myself. My goodness, innovation is coming from the enterprises as well, not
That's
just
right.
the technology companies. They've got plenty of ambition.
Yeah,
A lot of innovative ambition. So it has to be a group across different groups, right?
that's right.
Okay, well, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. Unless we have any other questions, I'll say thank you very much. You're around for the rest of the Big 5G,
Thank you.
correct?
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'll take